Hello, and welcome to the Things I See podcast. This is a very beautiful episode today. I'm going to be talking about something I've been working on that's definitely going to reverberate and vibrate with a lot of people who've possibly messed with psychedelics. But first, I'm just going to give a few updates on where I've been, what I've been up to. So I skipped another week on the podcast. It happens. It's so important to give grace for those things. And it's important to understand grace and acceptance doesn't come from beating yourself up, and it doesn't mean you're giving yourself a pass either, per se. Acceptance is the beautiful act of deciding you can do better or working towards greater things through that resolve. And it's a really beautiful practice that I've had to really put a lot of time into lately. And part of that is because the reason for skipping the episode, I was in Houston, Texas, having a ton of fun, but there was a moment where I experienced a trigger I haven't experienced in a long while, a trigger I didn't actually fully understand existed till it got triggered. Triggers are divine messengers. So it gave me time to look at what this trigger was telling me, and it was telling me a lot. I didn't have it in me to put work into other things at the moment, and that level of prioritization is something I will not lose, because it makes me deliver better content to focus on myself, to then return to content and do all of that. Overall message for everyone, give yourself grace, forgiveness, acceptance that sometimes these things gotta happen first. Sometimes these things happen at the time they do so they can happen first. Take it as the divine sign these triggers are happening, not so you can ignore them or push them down with the things you're doing, but so you can flow effortlessly through them and return stronger, better, happier, and brighter. On top of that, though, got through the trigger. I'm feeling super awesome now, feeling super centered, restored, kind of at a real level with myself. But part of that is because I had a sit down with the beautiful Cambosito. For those who don't know, that is a specific medicine, very physical leaning medicine, not psychedelic leaning. And it's a toad. Collect the mucus, burn holes in the skin, put the mucus on them, and it triggers a sickness reaction almost, where sickness in our body, the fever, the everything is our body purging things out. It basically simulates a similar purge. And it has a whole wide range of beautiful effects to it. Really good for the immune system, really good just in a ceremonial sense. It's not painful, but it's intense. It's uncomfy to get through that kind of thing. And through that discomfort, you can learn to sit with it. And through learning to sit with it, you can purge out some stuff that really needs to leave. And it's a physical purge, there's a lot of puking typically for people, but energetically it does some wonders. So I'm still kind of, picking myself up after that, but it ends up building the energy, building it more, and I'm excited to see how I'm doing 2 weeks from now, and I'll keep talking about it on the next episode for sure. So things have been eventful for me, and I'm happy to return to my podcast with a brighter, more secure, more joyous state of mind. My intention with Combo was strictly to become a more creative version of myself. Purge the things keeping me from creativity, and I realized that it wasn't about stuff I had to purge, it's about what I kind of had to pick up. I feel like it's easier to access creativity now, of course. It did purge some things out, but I'm realizing the real thing keeping me from it was not the fear, but my inability to face the fear. It wasn't that something was keeping me from it, except my own body keeping me safe. The discomfort and not wanting to face it. I record this episode and I have the creativity to bam, put all I have into it, and it's that ultimate realization that it's not going to remove the fear from me, But it is going to clear the way for me to be brave, for me to take this moment, sit with myself, and realize, oh, I'm doing this. This is okay. It's uncomfy being on camera. It's uncomfy talking. It's uncomfy putting out content. And that's okay. That's good. Because it's not about removing discomfort. It's about being there for yourself to face the discomfort. You know, discomfort rules people's lives. And a big part of what I'm talking about today is a therapy I'm producing that really helps bypass some of that. The current stand-in name for it is Absolution Therapy. I'm working on ideas such as transference therapy, oneness therapy. There's a whole lot of things I could call it. But it goes as follows. So I brought up this is going to tingle the minds of people who've done psychedelics, but this is a therapy that's meant to be used for people who maybe don't do psychedelics. Whether it's for religious purposes or personal reasons, this brings an essence that I think everyone needs to find. So many people are familiar with the term ego death, especially if you've done psychedelics. The removal of the self to find the awareness behind the self. And through that awareness, you can find who you actually are and connect who you actually are to the self, to the illusion, kind of bringing you center, authentic self. So Absolution Therapy is a method to replicate ego death, but in a way that's safe. And let me talk about that a bit. If you've ever seen someone have a bad trip, it's almost every time because of something called age regression. When you remove an ego, there's around 10 to 16 other layers of identity behind most people. Can be less, can be more. So when you remove one, what's underneath that? Is it another ego that can just be wiped away by the psychedelic? Maybe. But in the cases it's not. It is reactivating an identity, a self that has been stuck. A past self, a younger version of you. So now you have just summoned into your body 6-year-old traumatized you that is now frying in the year 2025. Of course they're going to have a bad trip. There's going to be the confusion, the kind of like, this isn't them feeling. I've had to babysit people on bad trips, and I've noticed for some of the bad trip, it's not that it's bad, it's that they're so sensitive. It's that this is a version of them that has not seen the light for years and years and years, decades possibly, and now they are frying in a body that's not theirs. And we don't want age regression. We don't want to ever trigger that. And again, ego death with psychedelics sometimes just phases through even that identity. But it doesn't mean that identity isn't there. Absolution Therapy takes an idea I was presented with on mushrooms. I was with a friend and I was just under a blanket. We were minding our own space, and I could feel my body from the outside to the inside, the skin to the muscles to the organs to the bones, turn to sand. Before I knew it, I was billions of particles of sand. I was a few dunes of sand. And for the next hour, I could feel myself as the sand shifting, turning, morphing, molding into something new. I could feel parts of me walking out of the sand. I could feel ideas being blown away off of my surface. Me as this billions of particles of sand. And at no point was I not me. And that is the gold. Absolution Therapy is not about ego death. We're not removing the self. That can not only be dangerous for some people, possibly triggering age regression, other types of issues, fears that they just aren't ready for. Not everyone's ready to just let go. It allows the self to move to something else, something greater than itself. And that is the beauty of this therapy I'm developing. It is done through hypnotherapy. And if you don't know, I am a certified hypnotist. In a few months, I'll be a certified hypnotherapist, which is something I'm unbelievably excited for. Soon doing a second year that will make me a certified clinical hypnotherapist. So the goal is we don't remove the self, but we move the self to something else. Today, I was able to move someone into an iceberg. I've moved someone into a lake. I've moved someone else into sand as well so far. All providing great results. All results I'm tracking, recording, and turning into a consistent system that other people can replicate. So, how does this actually help? First and foremost, the ability to step out of the body is therapeutic in any way you touch on it. There could be no transformations in the process. You could just move someone from their body into something else. And in that moment, they're just able to step outside of their own skin for a second. And that right there is some real fucking magic. And the goal is, so far as I can tell, people don't need psychedelics. They just need a safe space. They need a trance state. They need a guide. And being able to guide it makes it not just controlled, but it makes it not risky, not dangerous. It makes it safe. It makes it not comfy, but it makes it fluid. So, just to talk about the iceberg situation that I had just today. I had someone deep in a state of hypnosis imagine themselves on a mountainside. Back as the ice age is ending, the ice is melting, but there's still glaciers between the mountains, the glaciers that carved out some of these mountains. And I had them walk up to one, and there's a cave. I have them enter the cave. And as they enter the cave, there's a perfectly formed chair of ice. They sit down on it, and it's not cold, but it's cool. It's comforting. It's still. And bit by bit, I start with the skin, go to the muscles, go to the organs, go to the bones. That's my patterning so far. I slowly but surely have this person's body become ice. And after they become ice, they are the iceberg, because they are made of the same thing, connected to the same source. And from here, I emphasize what they are. They are the millions of particles of frozen water. They are the pure crystalline blue glacier. And I move from what you are to what they are, to what we are. They become something larger than self. Not removing the self, they become something other self. So there's therapy in that, but how do we continue therapy from that point? And this is where the real fun begins. You start with the weather. I always like to do the sun whenever there's water involved, whether someone is turning into the billions of particles of water that make up them as a lake, or they're the billions of particles of ice forming them as a glacier, feeling themselves stretching miles wide. As the sun hits their surface, they can feel it across their entire surface. They're always used as in many. But also androgynously, ambiguously, they are no longer their body, they are no longer them. But it is still their self moving fluidly through these things. They feel the sun hit their surface. They feel its warmth. And it starts melting them. And as this pool of water flows on their surface, this same sun, the same beautiful heat, can start evaporating out their stress, their worries, their anxieties, removing it from them entirely. Being able to step out of your body allows you to separate yourself one step from your attachments, from what those things actually are, aside from just nature. And that's the beautiful thing. It's the ultimate goal of helping people not take it personally by taking them out of their person just enough where we're not killing their ego. We are guiding them through alchemy. Alchemy that is fluid, alchemy that's free, alchemy that isn't restricted by self, but is open to the flow of nature. I had them imagine either on the front of this glacier that they are, or on the back of this glacier that they are, that there's a block of ice sticking out, connected to them. And this ice is not blue, this ice is gray. It's not very pretty at all. I have them think to themselves, what do you think this ice block is, this thing we can't let go of? And then as the sun moves through the sky, the sun starts hitting that block of ice. And they can feel it chipping and cracking as it melts. And eventually, it falls off. That is guiding someone through losing an entire portion of themselves. But they are just a glacier. They are just an iceberg. They are not the version of them that can't let go of it. They are just something experiencing the natural alchemy of nature. There's a point where I guide the sun even further. They can feel low at their base. There is a pool of water inside of them that's trapped in the ice, and the sun hits exactly right so that it melts the ice and allows that water to leave their system. Imagining this water, and you can say anything, whatever a client comes to you with that they have stuck in them, whatever I can see is stuck in someone as well, now is pouring out of them, flowing out freely, and is no longer a part of their body. Them as the iceberg, the glacier. And that's the ultimate goal. You pull people up and out, and like that, they are rebirthed. And to pull them up and out, you form it around that idea of rebirth. They were a glacier, but now in the heart of the glacier, in that cave they initially walked in through, their awareness can gather to where their body once was. And from the ice, they can feel their spine forming, then their ribs, then their arms, their legs down to their fingertips and to their toes, across their neck and their skull, all forming from the ice. They can feel almost as if it's being chiseled in the ice, all of their organs placed perfectly, being rejuvenated upon being formed. And that's part of the rebirth. When someone can leave their body can make drastic changes that their self is limiting. So as we return, we are forming a new body out of pure blue crystalline ice. Then next is the muscle, providing a comforting shield over all the organs and bones, the padding, the beauty, the strength. And of course, adding whatever suggestions that person wants more of, who they want to rebirth as. And then finally, the skin. The ice starts crawling, starts moving through and replacing itself with skin. And before you know it, they are in a body again. And they are now back, and you can guide them up and out of that trance, that hypnotic state, and suddenly they are reborn. A lot of people have awakenings on psychedelics or rebirth experiences, especially with some where rebirth just comes with it. You look at things like ayahuasca. Rebirth is just an essential part of it. The understanding of your journey and who you are no longer. And that's the beauty of it. When you look at a person and they remove that chunk of ice from their body, that thing they no longer are, they remember themselves as the person who used to have that chunk of ice or used to be that discolored part of them. But they are no longer, because that ice is no longer attached to the them that's an iceberg. It's not even that they used to be that, it's that they aren't that. And that is a good, solid run through of what absolution therapy is. With this case I did today, I won't lie, the iceberg glacier case was new. It was a test, and it went great, but I really like things like water, like sand, things that are fluid. Because the way wind shifts sand dunes, the way the sands shift themselves, all can be used to implement alchemy, change, transformation. And absolution therapy can be brought one step deeper. I have a client who, of course, I'm not going to name, and I've been working with them on the fullest extent of absolution. I guide their awareness down to being nothing, and then less than nothing. And in that space of being less than nothing, it's up to them to let go. I don't do that with many clients. This is a very special client. And through that less than nothing, it's almost like a big bang happens. It's almost like they invert from the singularity, the tiniest point. They fold outwards into everything, into all. And in that moment, they are the cosmic web. They are the cosmos. Their heart is a collection of nebula. Their liver is multiple galaxies strung together. Their fingertips are thousands of constellations. And again, not everyone is ready for that level of letting go. But to let go so much that you can become all is the ultimate pinnacle of absolution therapy. And of course, I have to make sure through someone becoming less, their self is stable, whereas they become less, something else doesn't take the place, doesn't take pilot. This is with people with DID, certain people with high psychotic disorders, or people with past selves that are stuck and they age regress. It's dangerous, but with the right people, it is beyond transformative. They can then bring that awareness from all back to exactly where they are, back into the self they aren't. The awareness isn't the self, and that's the miracle of it. People are able to find their real self in becoming nothing, so much so that they can become all, or just realize that they were already all. The awareness already is all. And that's gold right there. It's changed me to do this therapy for other people. I am a different person, both practitioner and soul and spirit, body, mind, the whole deal. It's made me realize a lot about who I actually am, the awareness that we are, that we all share. But of course, I'm not doing that to everyone. But for people, even people with DID, psychotic issues, or serious traumas, that is the beauty of absolution therapy. There's a scale. There's nothing to all, or there's moving the you that already exists to something else, stably, securely, solidly. And through that wondrous process is stuff that has changed my life. I still look back at that certain mushroom experience and think, wow, that changed me. And me developing this therapy, the theory of therapy, is only bringing that to a level where others can practice this. I have a list of about 50 things I want to turn someone into. Just to name a few that are really cool that I want to share. I want to turn someone into a star or the sun. I want to turn someone into a comet. And as they fly through space, they can feel parts of themselves chip off into space. And they keep going. They can feel themselves burn up or get close to certain planets. They can feel certain things orbiting around them, smaller objects. I love it. It's fantastic. There's icebergs, there's mountains, there's ravines. I want to guide someone through being a jungle. They can feel the rain striking their surface, and what that rain is filled with could be happiness, could be peace, could be just abundance. They can feel all of the leaves getting hit with the rain. I could turn someone into the rain. I could even turn someone into a singular tree. And through being that tree, they can feel themselves growing, going through the seasons. They can feel themselves maybe even being carved into something new, a totem pole, something magical. One of the weird ones I want to work with is oil. The idea that they, in essence, get buried, decompose, and turn into something new, just like oil does, through millions of years. And in the hypnotic state, time is really easy to mess around with. I mean, not always really easy, but in a case like oil, someone would be able to feel themselves sinking into the earth, and the earth replacing their bones with other minerals, and those minerals eventually turning into a compound of oil, something pure, something of the earth. Some other weird ones would be turning someone into sound, into plasma. Those two are exciting because they're very conceptual, but people can feel that. To have someone feel their skin, their muscles, their organs, their bones turn into sound itself, I feel like that's a step too close to full absolution on that scale. So that's something I would be wary of. You know, as the practitioner who's figuring this out, I have to be very careful of how far I'm bringing someone. And can they let go to that degree? I want to turn someone into time. I want to turn someone into gravity. I even thought of turning someone into a microbe. Something that's microscopic that can travel in numerous different ways. And the final one I'm going to bring up that I'm kind of excited for is a pearl. I want to turn someone into a pearl. Feeling themselves forming, feeling what's creating them as a sphere. A perfect, shiny, glossy sphere. And all of these are experiments except the ones I've done. I would say except for the sand dunes in the lake. I'm still figuring out all of these. But what I have discovered is absolute magic. And again, a lot of people, the idea for this came through psychedelics for me. Mushrooms specifically. And for many people, they're like, yeah, I'll just take psychedelics about it. That's not for everyone. Not everyone is ready for what psychedelics do to them, especially depending on the psychedelic. You look at some psychedelics and they are pure intensity without the medicine. You look at some and they are all medicine with the intensity. And even then, sometimes the intensity is still too high. Not all the time is this good for people, but in this beautiful trance that's controlled, in this beautiful state, in a safe place that I can cultivate, I'm able to help people alchemize on a level that the self isn't normally able to alchemize on. And that's exciting. That is super duper exciting. I've only had success so far, and if I have a failure, it's only to learn from. Everything I'm putting into this is so I can teach others how to eventually do this. And I'm planning on doing a meditation video guiding people through the one I know best, which is the sand dune. That one's just my favorite. I'm a desert kind of gal. I love the desert. I don't know about everyone else, but the desert is my absolute favorite. But that's the big thing, is what else can I guide people through? What else do people want to become? And how do I help them become their highest self through that process. Another thing I love about Absolution Therapy is it's entirely storytelling. Storytelling is one of the very first forms of magic. The only thing that's older than storytelling is funerary practice. Before civilizations develop language, they bury their dead. And before they communicate how they bury their dead, they figure out what happens after they die, or they guess, or they assume, or they build stories about it. It's almost like storytelling was birthed from death, from funerary practice. And it just makes sense that this therapy involves a death of some kind, a story to guide them through, and then the rebirth. People attach to stories, especially when the story isn't about them, but it's something they can relate to. And when you pull them out of their body just enough, it's their awareness relating to it. And it's beautiful to tell these stories, because in the trance, in the process, people are just witnessing themselves. And that's the beautiful thing. They don't need to see any of this. They can feel it. They can feel the way their entire body of water that is them, the billions of particles of water that they are, ripple when a rock falls on their surface. And they can feel the rippling across their surface. They can feel the rock traveling through them. All of these are just ways to tell stories. And through telling these stories, people are able to change at an alarmingly fast rate. At a very beautiful rate. It's something that I didn't even realize was possible until I started really doing it. And I'm so grateful I've started doing it. I'm so grateful I've found this. And I only found it because I went through it, and I am changed because of it. It was maybe an hour where I was sitting as a sand dune. Maybe more, maybe less. Time didn't matter. But the way I was shifting, molding, forming, turning, contorting, but not as me, as sand. I was able to process some things that I didn't know I still had in me. And that's the full circle of this. I want to be able to apply this to people with trauma. And for those of you who don't know, I was recently certified in doing hypnosis for PTSD, but additionally, I am diagnosed with CPTSD. I am diagnosed with DID, and I've had my own wacky adventures on that. And I need to make a whole episode on my DID, because it is that wacky. It is my lifetime of figuring out who the hell I am, and still figuring it out every day. And that's what I love about Absolution Therapy, is it changes you as awareness. And when you rebirth that awareness into a new body, you can be reformed. And I have a very strong belief that the body takes the shape of the energy as much as the energy takes the shape of the body. If something is hurt energetically, it will affect physicality. If something is hurt physically, it'll affect the energy. If you have a hand injury over any of the channels, that channel is just blocked. It's not going to be receiving stuff, but it's also not going to be able to vent stuff out. And through this process, with so much significant energetic change planted into the subconscious, the goal is that people can have physical change alongside the energetic change. When they rebirth into this body, their organs can work better. They can feel themselves better. They can return a new, refreshed version of them without parts of themselves that they didn't anymore need. And this should always be done alongside therapy to find the details. Get them to open up about what they want to not be or what they believe they are. And through the right therapy, the right cognitive therapy, the right hypnosis beforehand, building rapport, that trust. Absolution Therapy is the way. It's And my main goal is to separate it from psychedelics because, again, inherently it has that tie to psychedelics. I figured this out because of psychedelics. I have experienced ego death so many times. I've also taken care of people in bad trips. I've also seen people have many bad reactions to psychedelics. I also know a lot of people who choose not to do psychedelics, and these people need this. Again, all of the therapy already exists within that first step. The second their self is now in something else, they are now something greater than themselves. Something that isn't stuck to their attachments. Just that alone vents things out of the body, allows someone to reform as who they want to be. But through the storytelling, through the intricacies of what you can make anyone, they can become anything. And the beautiful thing is not only taking away. I talked a lot about how we remove from the glacier iceberg, how we can move the sand dunes. If you are a lake of water, you can feel the clouds block out the sun as the sun stops hitting your surface, and you can feel each and every raindrop hit your surface and create a ripple. 1 drop, 2 drop, and then suddenly hundreds of drops, then thousands of drops across your entire surface. And when you feel that across your entire surface, what is that rain filling you up with? Confidence, power, belief in yourself. It can be anything. Through this storytelling method, I plan to keep changing people's lives. And I really wanted to share this to the world. This is kind of my official stamp on the internet of this is what I'm working on. This is my idea. This is how I'm working on it. This is who I'm getting it out to. And I have nothing but absolute firm belief that this can change people's lives. Without psychedelics, without pressure, in a safe space, controlled, and for each and every person. For each and every single person, this exists. And I'm going to keep working on it and guiding people through it until others are using it. So, as I said before, I'm going to be doing a meditation here on YouTube. You'll see the video, if not tomorrow, in a few days. And maybe if I upload this podcast tomorrow from when I'm recording it, it'll be the same exact day. Feel free to check out my channel for other meditations, but this one's going to be special. I'm going to start with lake. I feel like people like water. Not everyone likes being dry like I do. Not everyone likes the desert or the sand. Everyone loves the water. To some extent, everyone loves the water. There's a lot to go with that. And that's the beauty of it, is finding the way it works for everyone and finding the consistent methods across the ways it works for everyone, where anyone can tell these stories and create alchemy, create rebirth in each and every person who wants that rebirth. Each and every singular person. I'm really excited to share this with the world more and more. If this is something you're interested in, I would love to be able to set up a consultation with you and see if that works. All my consultations are free for hypnotherapy. You can find that through my website in the description, and we can just talk about it. Is this something you're looking for? Is hypnotherapy right? Do you need to be in trance state? Is there other healing work you need? Maybe no, but maybe yes. I'm excited to keep changing the world through storytelling, through death, through rebirth, and through love. And thank you everyone who's joining me on the journey as I do it. I'm really stoked for the future of this healing. I think that covers everything I wanted to talk about Absolution Therapy. Of course, if there's any questions in the comments, leave them. This is something that I'm huge about, education. I don't want people to come back to me because they keep getting lost. I want people to find clarity on their own. There's enough people who are lost where I can keep getting clients of lost people who can find their way and then keep finding their way. You know what? If they get lost again, as it happens, then sure, they can find me again. But education is what I'm here for. Any comments, please feel free to check them out. If you want to check out my website, it's super beautiful. I made it myself. Feel free to check it out. Just check it out. There's free resources. There's live free virtual meditations I do on Zoom every single Sunday. If any of that interests you, definitely check them out. And other than that, I bid adieu. I say these things with light, with love, and with clarity. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.